Good afternoon, blessed people. It is Monday, April the 19th, 2021. Coming up in this edition of our 2 p.m. newscast. A 29-man committee has been set up to rewrite the history of Cameroon. How possible?
The history of every people is never complete because history in itself is very diverse, very large. So it's very possible that the history of Cameroon is still being written up to this moment. It depends on the objective of the people commanding the team. It depends on what they'll be asking them to write, on the orientations they are going to give them.
Get more of this when Promise Akante join me in the studio, and still to come in this edition of Royal Afternoon Edition. 9 years after the establishment of the electoral court in Cameroon, it is time to change some articles. It is a question we shall be answering in the course of this newscast. And in sports, in our Monday Sport Fire this afternoon with Benjamin Rekum, we shall focus on football with the Elite One matches that were played over the weekend and athleticism. Good afternoon once again. My name is Abel Bela Samari. You are welcome to Real Afternoon Edition, the 2 p.m. newscast. We open our news. Like I said, it is 9 years today, April the 19th, 2012 to April the 19th, 2021, that the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya signed Law number 2012/001 of April 19, 2012 on Electoral Code, which was later amended by Law number 2012/017 of December 22, 2012. Being the anniversary of the Electoral Code today, Jessica Tangana spoke with some political leaders on their appreciation and expectation of this Electoral Code. Take a listen to her report.
This anniversary comes in a context where certain political actors of the opposition have just initiated a project to revise this law, which, according to the political class, it is still anonymous. As expected, the Electoral Code does not leave the parliament indifferent. Deputy Kupit Adamu of the CDU party.
Many politicians and civil society in our country make sure that our actual electoral code has many problems. This code is not able to give us free and fair election in our country. So it's not a good electoral code. So the code did not reach the expectation of CDU and many political parties in our country. That is the consequence of its inability to guarantee free and fair election in our country.
Since the birth of the Electoral Code, there have been reforms but no satisfaction till date. Olivier Billet, president of the UFP party.
The fundamental problem relies on the political system operating in Cameroon since 1990. The political system which has been put in place has many problems, is faced to many issues, which make that you may have maybe the best electoral code could think about, but fundamentally this electoral code will not be able to produce the free and fair elections that we are dreaming to.
On their part, they have been calling for the revision of the Electoral Code for many years now. Umini Betro, a member and representative of the SDF at Elekam Yaoundé 5 district.
The electoral code we have today is not an electoral code that we can be proud of. The reason being that the electoral code was supposed to be a consensual code, that is, bringing parties together, sit and decide on what to put into the electoral code. But it was a single-handed issue. So the SDF has always tolerated but has never accepted electoral code. And time has proved us right that we're not supposed to accept it. So today, the electoral code is something we have to change.
Concerning the change of the Electoral Code, every opinion counts.
We want an electoral code which we enshrine into a managing body that controls election from the beginning, meaning from registration, distribution of voters' cards to the result of an election.
I cannot underline here all the proposals, and the fundamental are to reduce the electoral majority from 20 to 18 years, to reduce the duration of presidential mandate from 7 to 5 years.
It is useless to try to bring some reforms, some elements of change on these electoral codes. We have been used to that kind of doing in the previous years, but nothing has actually changed.
However, according to some sources, a bill to modify the electoral code could be submitted on the table of elected officials during the next parliamentary session.
Jessica Tangana in that report. This anniversary comes at a time when opposition parties are planning on bringing in more amendments to the set electoral code, even though there is disaccord. In order to know more about the chances of modifying the electoral code, Susan Nayonge caught up with a political analyst and compiled the following report for us.
Alemken Richard is a political analyst. Going by him, the Electoral Code signed on 19th April 2012 by the President of the Republic bears a lot of problems, as he explains.
It needs modification because one, Electoral Code is something that has to be consensus. It must be a consensuous something. No single political party can come out an Electoral Code. That is the first error that is found in it, and it needs to be amended.
These documents, which was modified on the 22nd of December 2012, still needs revision. Meanwhile, the country's election governing body, ELECAM, will be democratized if modifications are further implemented, and it will no longer be something between the CPDM and UNDP. Alemken Richard once more.
If the articles of the Electoral Code are amended, it simply means that members of ELECAM will be elected by consensus. That means all the major political parties who have a veritable say on the national scene will be represented at the ELECAM.
The opposition parties are currently scrutinizing the code so as to see where changes can be brought, though they are divided on a certain number of choices. Our political analyst believes that these modifications, if implemented, will ensure true, free and fair elections in the future. Here is what he proposes as solutions.
To reduce by 70 to 80% the hand of the public administration, so that is the Ministry of Territorial Administration and the government itself. I think the electoral body should be independent enough to handle those issues with the help of our forces.
Also, he adds that the influence of public administration should be greatly reduced so as to avoid cries of election mishaps.
What we need is that if there should be some cries at the end of every elections, it should not be the sort that can minimize or can lead to annoyment of the elections. That is the cry of the country.
All in all, the chances of bringing in modifications that will suit all of the country's parties are present, and fingers are kept crossed for the results.
Susan Nayonge in that report, and we will from that story to something else. A 29-man committee has been set up by the Ministry of Arts and Culture, charged with rewriting the history of Cameroon. The 24 French-speaking and 5 English-speaking big brains are expected to come up with what is not known about the history of Cameroon. Promise Akante, who is joining me in the studio, corner a historian for a first-hand evaluation of the committee and put together the following report for us.
Drawn from amongst historians, anthropologists, sociologists, linguists, archaeologists, and geographers, these scholars, for the sake of posterity, have the daunting task, duty, and responsibility to write the true history as it was and not as we wish it to be. That said, the most obvious question now is, what happens to what has already been written so far? Should it be discarded? Dr. Godwill Conso is a historian and an expert in good governance.
What has been written this far is still very important. The fact that people are coming to sit down to write the history. It could be the history from a government perspective. Other historians like Professor V.G. Fanso, great minds like Professor Abwa, Professor Temgwa, all of blessed memory. All what they wrote is still very, very useful. I think they will exploit some of those documents to write whatever they want to write. All these historians wrote various demands and from their own perspectives.
One of the members of the committee, in a social media post, urged everyone to contribute to the success of the mission by sharing their archives and counsel. Professor Godwill Conso says writing the history of a people is never ending.
Scientifically, the history of every people is never complete because history in itself is very diverse, it's very large, so it's very possible that the history of Cameroon is still being written up to this moment. They write different facets, different aspects of it, political, economic, social, religion, traditional, cultural, all of that. So writing it is never ending.
However, a resource person says this rewriting process may have to go according to the whims and caprices of those who set up the committee.
It depends on the objective of the people commanding the team, what they'll be asking them to write, the orientations they are going to give them. But now, speaking as a scientist, I doubt whether the objectivity will be attained because writing history from an objective and scientific perspective requires your conscience, what you observe critically and objectively, that you put it as facts. Their methodology is what we are waiting to see.
Many have been quick to question the composition of the committee, with 24 French-speaking and 5 English-speaking members, but Dr. Godwill Conso cautions that a book should not be judged from its cover. Patience is the watchword.
Pomisa Kante in that report. Cameroon has joined the rest of the world on April 18, 2021 to celebrate where Monument and Site Day under the theme Complex Post-Diverse Future. Established by UNESCO since 1983, the day is aimed at raising public awareness about the diversity and vulnerability of the world's built monument. Our reporter Finri Crispin interviewed historian on the importance of monument and our report.
A monument is a type of structure either created to commemorate a person, an event which has become important to a social group as a part of remembrance. Young Christopher is a historian. He explains the significance of monuments.
Monuments are historical relic because if those monuments are not there, some of these things that we do theoretically, so might not really grasp them that way. So if they see some of those monuments which relate to what they learn, it leaves an impact on them.
Of diocesan services and other associations were allowed, according to sources at the St. Peter and Paul Cathedral in Douala. Bishop Emeritus of the Diocese of Kinkala of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Louis Portela Bayo, Bishop Yves-Marie Monot of the Diocese of Ossine of the Congo Brazzaville, and Archbishop Anatole Malindu of Brazzaville are in Douala, Cameroon, for the funeral of late Cardinal Toumi. Other delegations include special envoys from Vatican, some African countries and European nations, plus the Americans. And to equally says that with more than 1 million people from Cameroon and other countries expected to attend the burial of Cameroon's lone cardinal, the organizing committee has put COVID-19 safety measures to curb infection. The wearing of face masks is obligatory at all times. Cardinal Toumi died in Douala on April 3rd, 2021 and will be buried on Tuesday, April 20, 2021. And on to something else today, April 19, 2021. We are in our health page. It's been observed and World Liver Day. World Liver Day is a day commemorated every year with the aim to raise awareness about liver-related diseases. Earlier on, our reporter Jementa had a chat with Dr. Chi Pilot, a medical doctor who began by defining what we should understand by liver diseases.
The role of the liver is to regulate most chemicals in the blood, and also it excretes substances called bile. This bile substance helps to carry out waste product from the liver, and it is clear that the liver, blood that passes from the stomach and the intestine all passes through the liver. The essential cause of liver disorder is nothing else but alcohol. Beside alcohol, you have chronic hepatitis B or chronic hepatitis D. This also can cause what we call liver cirrhosis. Liver cirrhosis is a situation where the scar tissues has formed, making it difficult for the liver to function properly. So when there is the involvement of hepatitis B or hepatitis D, liver cirrhosis can occur, thereby making it difficult for the liver to function normally.
Dr. Chi Pilot went further to list out the signs and symptoms of liver disorder.
The most common signs and symptoms of liver disorders that we find around us will include jaundice, that is the skin and the eyes appears yellowish. We can experience abdominal pain and some swelling. You can have dark urine color. You can have chronic fatigue, nausea, and even vomiting, as well as pedal edema. When you start experiencing some of these signs and symptoms on you, it is a clear indication that you may be suffering from a liver disorder. It will be better for you to consult a medical practitioner that will help in the diagnosis of your medical condition.
The medical doctor went further to explain some of the risk factors associated with liver diseases.
Exposing or risk factors will include heavy alcohol use, obesity, type 2 diabetes, tattoos or body piercing, injecting drugs using shared needles, blood transfusion on screen, exposure to other people's blood and body fluids, unprotected sex, exposure to certain chemicals or toxins, family history of a liver disease. These may be some of the exposing factors of liver disease in humans.
As advised, the doctor help Cameroonians to prevent oneself from liver diseases.
As preventive means, we will need to drink alcohol with moderation, avoid risky behavior, get vaccinated, use medication wisely, avoid contact with people's blood or body fluids, keep your food safe, maintain a healthy weight, protect your skin, and take care of your aerosol sprays. This will be some of the ways by which we can help prevent hepatitis.
Dr. Chi Pilate was interviewed by our own Shementa. And we still here to say World Hemophilia Day has been celebrated on Saturday, April the 17th, 2021. Hemophilia is a rare disorder of the blood in which it doesn't clot normally because it lacks sufficient blood clotting proteins. In Cameroon, a round table was organized to celebrate the day. During the conference, health experts point out ways of improving the level of medical care given to patients suffering from the disease. Dr. Claude Tayo Tani, in the following excerpt, explains strategies put in place by the government to follow up patients.
It's a congenital bleeding disorder. That's why we are diagnosing that disease very early at 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and also prevent some complications, mostly the boys. Some are afraid that this disease is a kind of witchcraft disease. I mean, something that has been transmitted by any other way than science. We think that we need to educate those families for them to come and to be diagnosed in our center. Thanks to the World Federation of Hemophilia and University Teaching Hospital, we have now a treating center in University Teaching Hospital that provides free of charge care to hemophilia patients. It includes free consultation and also free drugs that have been provided by the World Federation of Hemophilia. The staff has been trained to diagnose the disease and to take care of them. And then we are now working on new drugs that may prevent the bleeding in the future and reduce the frequency of the bleeding, because we have 10 patients have started using that drugs and it seems to work. So from there, we'll be able to give those drugs to all our patients.
Today's government news, the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reform, Joseph Lay, has authorized regional delegates of his ministerial department to certify career documents as means to limit the movement of civil servants from the regions to the capital city, Yaoundé. Minister Joseph Lay says the move is part of effort to effectively decentralize Cameroon. The Public Service and Administrative Board was speaking in an interview granted to state media, which he says.
We sent some orders to allow regional delegates to certify some papers. I could even say all the papers the user can need. Because, you see, when I sign, let us say, an advancement for you, if you are a civil servant, you are, let us say, in Akwaya, you still had to come to Yaoundé to have this paper. And when I've signed, and when you have got your paper, you still needed to certify it by one of my collaborators, who is a sub-director here in the central services. And you have noticed that it's not easy for our users. Those are services we can deconcentrate. That's why I signed that order authorizing regional delegates to certify those papers there. Because since last year, we have started to send files, documents for the users to our regional delegations. But you need to ask your paper. If it's, for example, an integration, you need to ask and tell us where you are. If you are in Boya, if you are in Kumba, you precise your address, your email, your phone number, and so on. So we send it to your regional delegate. And you, instead of coming to Yaoundé here, you had to stop in Boya to have this paper. But you have noticed that even when you have got this paper, you were still obliged to come to Yaoundé because it was only one of my collaborators in the ministry who had to certify this paper. So the problem was not yet solved. That's why I thought, after consultation with all my collaborators, after reading text, organizing those things, I thought it was important to give that authorization to the regional delegates. And I can assure you that it was well received by the users. They are very glad.
Minister Joseph Lay speaking there. And the electricity regulatory body, better known by its French acronym ACCEL, last week issued an ultimatum to the electricity supply agency NEW to respond to the cry of Cameroonians who for some times now are suffering from power failure. Ever since the 8 days ultimatum was given, power shortage still persists within the country. Will a new heal to ACCEL call? Will ACCEL punish a new after the 8 days expired this week? That is the question our reporter Jementa met with Cameroonians today in the capital city of Yaoundé for the analysis, and she brought back the following report for us.
The Electricity Regulatory Body, ACCEL, and the Electricity Supply Agency, NEO, are the main supplier of electricity in Cameroon, who keep on fighting and fail to do their work as these young Cameroonians call on the government to hasten their steps.
We are actually disappointed in NEO because they know we depend on this electricity daily for the different activities we are involved in. When I look at that critically, it turns me to look at the government that they should also do something to hasten their steps in the implementation of the electricity distribution process.
Some Cameroonians uphold that Electricity Regulatory Body ACCEL's ultimatum to NEO comes very late.
If ACCEL should be coming in to caution NEO on the power failure that Cameroonians have been witnessing these days, it is because ACCEL is doing its job and NEO is not doing its job. The worst part of it is that when you go to suburbs in Cameroon, like in the north, you may pass 2-3 weeks without lights. In the northwest and southwest area is the worst. ACCEL is just coming in, play its role by cautioning NEO that, look, you have to give light to these people. They need it, they are your customers and they pay for it, but that job is being done at the wrong time. ACCEL should control everything from the beginning till the end.
While, according to this Cameroonian, he suggests some solutions to improve the electricity supply in Cameroon.
To solve this problem, I think that NEO and ACCEL should be monopolized, meaning that other private people should take part in the management of the electricity in Cameroon. This will go a long step to solve the problem of electricity failure in Cameroon. For instance, we have the Bamingin Dam in the west of Cameroon can generate a good electricity supply, and it is not being exploited, and which is a bad thing, which is not good. Every year of Memvele, that has to generate electricity. What are we doing? The problem is that the government also have to sit down and take necessary measures to solve this issue.
Going by these reactions, these Cameroonians can't bear this power failure anymore as they call on the government to solve the issue of electricity supply in Cameroon. Abel.
Jementa in that report. And we talk culture in this newscast to say the Cameroon International Film Festival CAMIF goes underway today in Boya, southwest region of the country. The event seeks to showcase the richness of the film sector in Cameroon as well as other parts of the world. To better understand how this year's edition will look like, our reporter Mapalazita had a phone chat with the CEO of CAMIF, Abel Gilbert, and compiled the following report for us.
The Cameroon International Film Festival CAMIF is an annual event, but since 2018, Cameroonians have been starved from the splendor of the festival. Abel Gilbert, generally called H, is the CEO of the event, and he explains.
We didn't do CAMIF 2019 because of the social-political atmosphere in Cameroon. We didn't do 2020 because of the coronavirus. And this year we thought it wise to challenge ourselves because we saw the need to do the festival.
This edition of CAMIF has as theme the rights of education for every child, and it will run for a whole week with several activities, as Abel Gilbert tells us.
We are going to open the festival with the first 2 short films for the screening. Then tomorrow we are going to have masterclass in acting, directing, script writing. We are also having a masterclass on cinematography. On Friday, we are going to be having a film and business workshop with Mr. Moses of Film One and Netflix Acquisition, Mr. Snipes, who's the director of operation for BET, Mr. Ramsey Noah, actor and director from Nigeria, and Mr. Ken from South Africa.
Worth noting that there will also be a film and social cohesion symposium, which is also in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme and UNESCO. This in a bid to encourage socio-cultural exchange between filmmakers within and without Cameroon, the government and the private sector.
We are also using the festival to encourage social cohesion among citizens of this country because the crisis has become so devastating that people are living in fear, particularly the youth. And we believe that Camif serves as a platform that can bring joy and peace and contribute to nation building.
The Edutainment Festival will wrap up next Saturday with awards in different film categories.
We take you out of the country. First stop in Nigeria, where at least 7 people are reported dead following fire outbreak as a result of a tanker explosion in central Nigeria on Sunday. An oil tanker laden with petrol veered off the roads and split its content on the Osibodu area of Benin State. Eyewitness says huge flame from the burning tanker looped into nearby houses, catching people unaware. The executive secretary of the Benin State Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Emmanuel, told journalists that the fire killed several people and destroyed some 50 houses. And we stay out of the country to say that Malawian President Lazarus Chikwara has fired senior officials, including Labour Minister King Kandudu, over alleged embezzlement of COVID fund. The president said the action followed an audit he had commissioned into the spending of 6.2 billion Malawian kwashi, about $7.8 million for COVID response. We come back to talk sports. And to talk sport on this Monday is our own Ben Emmanuel Kum, who is joining me in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Emmanuel.
Good afternoon, Abel Bela Samari.
We begin with football, man, to say that match day 7 of the Elite One Championship produced some exciting results, while the highly awaited debut between Canon Sportif of Yaoundé and arch rival Toneka Club of Yaoundé failed to produce goals. Other clubs like Avion Academic Omkam, Fufu Club of Baham, and Young Sport Academic of Bamenda pick up big wins. Emmanuel?
Young Sports Academy of Bamenda and Avion Academy recorded the biggest win on March day 7 of the Elite One Championship last weekend.